All right, welcome to Ohio State of Mind. I am your host, Josh Keatley. With me this week is the foremost expert in the topic that we're discussing, Mr. Bull Walker, who's the head Ohio State writer for the Around the Block Network, which, as you know, is what this podcast is a part of. Bull, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing very good. I'm pretty excited to talk about this with you. For those that don't know, we've talked about this. I don't think I actually tweeted out or anything. We're going to talk about it this week, actually, or was it last week? The NCAA video game would have released. Obviously, the NCAA video game is scheduled to come out ahead of next season, but we thought it would be interesting to break down, hey, if the game came out, who would be ranked where? Like, what are we looking at? And Bull, we had Bull on the show a couple weeks ago, and you actually shared your Ohio State fandom because you're actually in Kalamazoo, Michigan, surrounded by Michigan fans, and you actually got your fandom from playing the NCAA video game, right?
Yeah, for real, yeah, man. My friend, best friend growing up. We always played the game together in rival teams. That's how it was. So whatever he picked, I picked a rival. If I picked a team, he picked a rival. That's where really it all started.
So you played the last one, NCAA 14?
Yeah. I was just playing it probably last year. My PS4,
really?
Or PS3. I mean, because they still had the servers going. People were still updating the roster. So I was playing with Justin Fields. I was playing with Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson. Like they would update the rosters and they update the rosters and everything. They have whole dynasty league, like Facebook groups, everything. People still play.
Dude, I got rid of my copy.
For real? See, it's like $100 now. You try to buy it now, you try to buy it off eBay or something, it's like $100.
For like $70.
Yeah, for real, it's really expensive, man. It's crazy.
It's only for Xbox 360 too, right? Like they didn't make it for Xbox One?
No, they didn't make it for Xbox One.
Yeah, see,
so
it's funny.
PS3, Xbox 360, that's where people playing now.
So I don't have the newest Xbox. What's it called? Like Xbox Series S?
Xbox One, yeah.
No, because there's one Xbox X or something stupid. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the newest one, Xbox Series X,
Yeah, I don't have that one, but I have the Xbox One. So, and I don't really play video games too much. My fiance actually plays more than me, but it's for those that don't know, this is not only audio, but you can watch this on YouTube as well at the Around the Block YouTube channel, Ohio State of Mind. But the look on Bull's face when I said I didn't have the video game, you looked like you felt so bad for me. Like, no, wait, what? Are you sure?
It's hard to grab. I lost mine. That's why I stopped playing. I ended up losing mine. So I've been.
Oh, really?
Since. Yeah, I ended up losing mine.
Yeah, you can't buy it online or anything. You can't download it, right? You got to go buy a physical copy because they got rid of all the server. They got rid of all that stuff because they were not allowed to make it anymore because of the legal reasons. But so this will be right up your alley. As far as the 2014 Ohio State Buckeyes, or I guess it would be the 2013 because they come out a year in advance, right? I got actually the ratings for the Ohio State football team in the video game pulled up in front of me. Do you remember who the best guys were on that team?
It had to be Braxton Miller.
Yeah, Braxton Miller was a big old 96 overall.
Yeah, Braxton Miller. Damn.
Ryan Shazier is a 93.
Yeah, Ryan Shazier. Yeah.
Bradley Roby was a 91.
Yeah, Bradley Roby was nice on there.
Corey Lindsey was a 90. Andrew Norwell was a 90. Drew Basil was a 90. Jack Muhort was a 91. Corey Brown was a 90. Corey Brown, I don't know how Corey Brown was a 90. Devin Smith was a 91. Now, if we talk about some of the more lovable Buckeyes, Kenny Guyton was an 87. Cardell Jones was a 79. JT Barrett was a 77. Carlos Hyde was an 89. Ezekiel Elliott, just a young freshman from St. Louis, was a 79.
Yeah, I remember Zeke on there too.
Yeah. Michael Thomas, 81.
Yeah, all the best players, they were young on there, so they really had to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I thought it'd be interesting to read off some of these younger guys to see what they could have been if they would have said Joey Bosa was just an 80, another freshman that year. Darren Lee was a 76. It's pretty funny, dude.
Darren Lee, man, he was underrated. He ended up exceeding expectations.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, he was a quarterback in high school.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
like New Albany, I think. I remember seeing him live. He was a bad dude. He was very, very good. Eli Apple's a 74, went on to be a first rounder. So that brings us to our next topic. If the game was out today, what do you think who would be the top rated Buckeyes? I mean, I think there's a pretty obvious answer here, right?
Yeah, I mean C.J. Stroud, of course, and Jackson
Really?
Smith and Jigba.
Whoa,
I'll
whoa,
say
whoa, whoa,
those
whoa,
two.
whoa, whoa! Hold on, going too fast. Who would be the highest ranked Buckeye?
The highest ranked, I would say, man. I mean, because it's between CJ and Jackson. I'm gonna go with CJ. I'm gonna get the quarterback
Really?
to 9. Yeah, I'm gonna get the Q. I think CJ would be like a 97 or something. I think Jackson would be second, like a 96, 95.
Okay, so let's say I got the player ratings for that year pulled up. As far as 90, there was 2 quarterbacks rated 97 that year, Johnny Manziel, AJ McCarron. There was one 97 wide receiver, Marquise Lee. Okay. There was no 99s, and I don't think there was actually even a 98. Oh no, Jadeveon Clowney was the only 99. So I guess my thought process was there were no 98s. That I would have guessed that Jackson Smith and Jigba would be the 98.
I
I
can
mean,
see it.
he was the leading receiver. I'm trying to figure out. So Ohio State, first of all, as a team, they probably the second highest rated team, right behind Alabama.
Yeah, I say second or third between like Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State would be the top 3.
Yeah. Well, I was assuming that Georgia would fall down the ladder a little bit because they lost all that defensive talent. But maybe you're right. But either way, we're on the same page there. So I guess my thought process was that since we had 2 wide receivers last year that went to the first round, and Jackson Smith and Jigba was actually the leading receiver of that group, he'd be a 98. He'd be the best receiver in the game. But
I think I think he will be the best receiver in the game.
But you just think he'd be lower at 96.
Yeah, I think so. I think he'd just be like a tier. Because I had CJ at 97, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he'd be a 96, 95. Those two. I think CJ just would get the nod as a quarterback, and he really doesn't have any weaknesses as a passer. So I feel like his accuracy rating and everything would be up there.
I'm right there with you. I wrote down. I'm showing on the camera. CJ Stroud. I had CJ Stroud as a 97 overall too. That was my guess. So we're on the exact same page there because I kept thinking, all right, there's not going to be a whole lot of 99s. If there is one, it's going to be Bryce Young. Bryce Young, you would think, is probably going to be rated higher than CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I would say so. One of the highest, man.
Yeah. And then there might be some other flyer down there. I remember in the old school, the old school NCAA games, they would always have someone who was kind of like a outlier to make those other teams. Like Teddy Bridgewater was in 96, Aaron Murray was in 96, Taj Boy was in 95, Bryn Renner was in 93. So I guess I was thinking like maybe a Phil Jerkovich might be up there from Boston College, someone to make that team.
Could be. Will Levis from Kentucky.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
There.
And then who'd be your third highest ranked Buckeye? Who do you think? What Buckeyes do you think are in the 90 club, 90 or above?
The 90. Okay, we got CJ, we got Jackson. I feel like of course Travion Henderson.
Really?
Yeah, I think he in the 90 club.
Whoa. Well, hold on. Now we got okay. Now we got a little bit of a dispute here. So let's look at the running backs from 2014. There were 15 running backs ranked 90 or above. D'Anthony Thomas, Kadeem Carey, Jeremy Smith, I don't remember him at all. Henry Josie, John Hubert, Lace Seastrunk, Ladarius Perkins. Wow, this is quite the list. Todd Gurley, Ben Molina, Dree Archer. I mean, I guess reading off that list, yeah, Trey Henderson might be a 90. I guess I was thinking because you're going to have Bijan Robinson, right? The running back from Texas A&M, the running back from UCLA. And remember, too, you can't make Ohio State that good. So I guess I was thinking that Henderson was probably going to be in the 80s. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like our defense will take the defensive ratings will take the overall down. That's how I would look at it. We don't really have true studs on defense right now. Like we have some guys that we hoping for. Ronnie Hickman, like the guy who flashed the most last season. So I would say, he'd probably be our highest rated defensive player, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think Ronnie Hickman would.
You think he's in 90?
Or Zach Harrison. It would be one of those because Zach Harrison he'd be up there too.
That's who I had. I had Zach Harrison. I thought Zach Harrison. I had Paris Johnson as my next highest rated Buckeyes in 96.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think about that? I guess that's kind of ballsy considering he didn't play tackle last year. But I mean, I feel like it's pretty consensus that he's one of the best offensive tackles in the country. He's getting mocked in the first round constantly. So I didn't think it was that ballsy. What do you think about that?
I think it'll be tough, the 96 just to be so high, like early on. Even though he is projected, to be that guy. He was a stud in high school. I got the utmost belief in him. I feel like he's gonna come in and be
And
our
I
next
guess
stud.
my assumption too is you have to make the Ohio State offensive line good. And I don't know who else gets you there. I mean, no one else on that offensive line should be in the 90s, right? You got a bunch of guys that, I mean, Matt Jones didn't start. Maybe he'll be in the high 80s, but he didn't start last year. Luke Whippler, you know what I mean? So I guess I was thinking Paris Johnson at a 96, and then 89, 88, 87, 86 down the line. So that would kind of even it out. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. That makes sense.
Well, let's look.
I probably would go with like a 93 for him.
That makes sense. I guess you're right, because there weren't a whole lot of 90 offensive linemen to be on. Well, let's look. There were 30. There were 30 offensive linemen in NCAA 14 that were ranked 90 or above. So I guess he could be ranked lower, and then those other guys would be ranked. It wouldn't really matter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I also gave Zach Harrison a 96, but I guess that's pretty. If I'm looking at these rankings, and Jadeveon Clowney was a 99, there's a big difference in Zach Harrison and Jadeveon Clowney. So maybe I misunderstood the assignment there. What do you think?
Yeah, Zach, I feel like that's a little high. I probably would have had him more like 90, 91. So something like that.
He's definitely the 90s, though.
Yeah. I still want to see him, dominate more. But he's been solid. He's been a good starter for us. I feel like I'm hoping it's the year where he really burst on the scene. Man.
I think it is. If I had to put money on it, that's where I feel like Zach Harrison's gonna have a big year. I think this defense suits him well.
I think it's big getting him back as a senior. Like, that's rare for us to get NFL talent to come back as a senior. We don't usually get that.
Exactly. Because if he would have left last year, it just based on his pure athleticism, he would probably be drafted in the first 3 rounds. So I'm with you there too. I didn't think Ronnie Hickman would be in the 90s.
I don't either.
I had Lathan Ransom as someone who I thought might be a 94. That's what I gave him. I think that he's someone that is underrated because of the injury.
Yeah.
But obviously you feel differently.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure, because I feel like Hickman and Proctor, they might be the 2 highest rated, like, DBs for us, I feel like.
Who?
Hickman and Proctor, Josh Proctor.
What about Denzel Burke?
Yeah, actually, those would be the 2 highest safeties. I can't forget about Burke, because Burke was a stud last year. He was like,
I don't think you can make a true sophomore a 90. So I'm with you. He probably shouldn't be in that club, but he'd be up there.
Yeah, I think so too.
Let's look. What do we say those corners were? I mean, he was better than Doran Grant, who was an 80.
Yeah.
So you got
definitely.
Yeah.
And then you got Burke could be high 80s.
Yeah. Oh, I think I agree with that.
I think he'd be about an 87, 86, 87, something like that.
I also think that there's going to be a second wide receiver ranked in the 90s. I think you just have to, based off of the depth of the receivers. I think you kind of saw that when I'm looking at the NCAA 14 rosters for Ohio State, because the Ohio State wide receivers were so good. They felt the need to bump Corey Brown up to a 90 just to make this unit better, because they knew it was a good unit. I think Julian Fleming's the guy. I think that they give Julian. I think that you make Julian Fleming a part of the 90 club at 91.
Fleming, okay. See, I was thinking more, but
I knew you were thinking Marvin Harrison, right?
Yeah. I was thinking more.
You said that on the last show, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, because it's hard to tell, because really the only proven receiver we have is like Jackson Smith and Jig. Everybody else, we waiting to see what they are. Even though I believe in them all, but like.
So I guess my thought process was Julian Fleming is significantly older, and his recruiting ranking was, stellar. He was a 5-star recruit. But but Marvin Harrison Jr. was the second leading receiver at that Utah game. So maybe I'm wrong, because if you go recency bias, Marvin Harrison Jr. is your guy, and Harrison's by far had the most hype other
Yeah,
than
I'm about to say they've
Fleming.
been raving about him on
Yeah, and
campus.
Fleming didn't even play in the spring. So,
Yeah,
I
so
believe that the NCAA gods kind of get a lot of their stuff from the spring practices. But that's interesting. So you might be right there. So Harrison would have been in your 90 club.
90, I don't know, because he a young guy. I have to see how
But
they were ranking the young
you're only gonna have
guys.
one Ohio State receiver in the 90s though. That sounds weird, right?
Yeah, it does though. But like this the first year where like I feel like well, not the first year, but like the first year in a couple seasons where like we really throwing a couple unproven guys out there. Like we got Jackson Smith. Even though Marvin, like I feel like we know what he is. Like everybody can see he's a stud. We
Yeah.
got Meke Buka stud. Julian Fleming, he was the number one receiver in the country in high school. So we have our guys, we feel like are going to be studs. But just as far as rating, I don't know. I feel like it'd be tough because they don't have as much to go off of. But I feel like
So
they will all be 80s, high 80s, stuff like that. I definitely feel like we have like a couple receivers, 85, 86, stuff like that.
So in the 2014 game, they gave Mike Davis and Jackson Shipley 90. Mike Davis was a 92. Jackson Shipley was a 91 for Texas. Ohio State had Devin Smith at 91 and Corey Brown at 90. We already talked about that. And then Texas A&M, they gave – oh, no, it was just Mike Evans there. But Alabama, they made Amari Cooper 91, and then Kenny Bell, who was a nobody, at 89. And then they made Christian Jones in 89. And they made Andrew White in 89. I think and three of those guys weren't any good.
Yeah.
I think that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like some of it's not about necessarily how good the players, but they're trying to make that positional group bump. You know what I mean? That Ohio State bump or
And they're
whatever.
gonna go. They probably factor in their recruiting rankings too when they're ranking young guys.
I would think
Potential probably
so.
factor in that potential too. Give them a higher rating.
Yeah. So I was also looking at the highest rated freshmen, like when they would come in the game, and typically the highest rated freshmen would be like 84s. Okay, and then it would kind of go down from there. So I guess I thought that maybe we could talk about what our expectations for the freshmen. Obviously, CJ Hicks was the one that came in with the most hype. I would assume he'd be the 84, right? Or any dispute there?
No, I mean CJ Hicks did come with the most hype. I would say, yeah, CJ Hicks.
And
That's
then
definitely who I would go with.
Sonny Styles would probably be an 83.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was thinking him next. Those are the two like prize recruits from that
Yep.
class.
Yep. And then I was thinking Devin Brown might be an 80.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
And then Kenyatta Jackson and Amari Arbor, the two defensive ends at 79.
Yeah.
And I was thinking Caleb Brown, the wide receiver, at 79. And those would be your big hitters. After that, I don't have no idea. But those guys were,
I wonder
those
how
guys
they
were big.
would. I wonder how Kai Stokes would be ranked, just because how he looked like in the spring game, and he's another guy who's been getting a lot of praise. He was only a 3-star recruit.
I don't know if he was a 3-star recruit, but I mean, I've done 15 recruit. Well, let's look because that won't take me very long. Because for those that aren't aware, I write for Buckeyes Wire, USA Today's Buckeyes Wire as well, and I've done scouting reports for. Let's see here. Most of the recruits I've done for CJ. So let's go in order of 24/7 Sports. This is the ranking of the recruiting classes. CJ Hicks, Sonny Styles, Devin Brown, Kenyatta Jackson, Amari Arbor, Caleb Brown, Keon Graves, Gabe Powers, Tegra Shabola, Caden Curry, Hero Canoe, Caleb Burton, Kojo Antwi, Carson Hinsman, Jair Brown, George Fitzpatrick, Dalen Hayden, Ryan Turner, and then you get your Kai Stokes, who's a 4-star athlete. So the only 3-star in this class was Avery Henry. There's usually only about three. Yeah. So, but he was, what I named. How many dudes is that? 21.
Yeah, named a lot of guys. Yeah.
Yeah, 21, and he was number 20? What'd I do? 21, 20. He was number 19. So yeah, he wasn't thought of very highly. So I don't know. I guess that's the question: is how heavily do they have the spring game influence them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wonder about that too. That plays a factor because it's basically, I don't know. I feel like they might already have the player ratings done by then, but I don't know. They might do it after because it usually comes out the second weekend in July when the game always came out.
Yeah.
Second week of July, I mean.
Well, I'm looking at the roster from the NCAA 2014, and the lowest rated freshmen seem to be 74s. Here's 72 Jamie Thompson. So those are the lowest rated freshmen. If you look at a guy like Eli Apple was actually Cam Burrows was a freshman. He was a 78 that year, and then Eli Apple was a 74.
I also think they when it comes to big schools, they overrate guys too. Just not saying they're overrated, but like they give him a higher rating just because he's at Ohio State, because he's
try to give him that bump,
because he's at Georgia, because he's at USC, Michigan, stuff like that.
So I'm looking at the highest rated freshman. It looks like Zeke Elliott was a 79. Kyle Dodson was a 79. Joey Bosa was an 80. He might be the highest rated freshman. Mike Mitchell was an 81. I think that's the highest rated freshman of that class, which is funny.
Mitchell, man, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah, because he ended up transferring to Texas. Him and his brother. And his brother played basketball. Mike Mitchell ended up transferring to Texas Tech. And
I remember his brother in basketball.
Mike, what was his, Mickey or what? I don't remember.
Mickey Mitchell. He played football, too. I remember his first couple years he did. But, yeah, they both ended up going to Texas Tech.
Yeah, the linebacker one, he didn't do anything. My understanding. Was it Texas Tech or Texas A&M?
No, it was Tech. I believe it was Texas Tech.
Yeah, he was a guy that I think he looked like Tarzan, played like Jane. He ended up transferring, and then he transferred from Texas Tech to Prestonwood Christian Academy in the NAIA level. Jeez, dude.
I'm surprised he was our highest rated freshman. Looking at the class, he was like the fifth best guy in our class, ranking wise.
I don't think he was, though. I think that year he was supposed to be the shit. What? So that would have been the let's look. I got 24/7 pulled up here. So that would have been the 2013 class.
I know we had Von Bell and Bosa in that class. I know Von was high.
Yeah, Von Bell's not even in the game. Maybe was he a late enrollee or something?
Maybe. Jalen Marshall won. I think he's another highly touted guy.
No, Von Bell was a 77. And then you're right. Jalen Marshall was the second recruit. Let's see what he was. Jalen Marshall's not even in the game.
Yeah, they used to miss some guys.
Yeah, we talked about Joey Bosa being an 80, Eli Apple being a 74. Then it was Mike Mitchell.
Yeah. You said Mitchell was an 81, right?
Yeah, and he was the 1, 2, 3, 4. He was the fifth best recruit in that class based off 24/7's ranking.
Surprised by that.
I don't know why there's such a big gap between. It makes sense that he would be an 81 over. Let's say it makes sense that he might be rated higher than Von Bell or Joey Bosa because he plays the linebacker position. I think that maybe the thought process there is that you could probably play linebacker at a younger age. Does that make sense? Then those two positions.
So, I mean, DB is a hard position.
I didn't say one was harder than the other. I'm just trying to look at it.
No, I'm just saying, might be a clearer path to early playing time. I think it just depends. Ohio State linebackers are, at that time, too, were highly touted, highly respected. I was something we were known for at the time. Well,
here's another thing, too, because if you're comparing it to the scope of the college football landscape at the time, C.J. Mosley was a 97, Danico Allen was a 95, Shane Scov was a 94. Those are the highest linebackers. The highest cornerbacks, though, were Aaron Colvin in 92, Chris Davis in 91, and Justin Gilbert in 91, and Bradley Roby in 91. So the corners seem to be rated. That's my fire smoke one. The quarterbacks seem to be rated lower. So maybe that's why.
Yeah,
that's kind of a weird because the Eli Apple that 74. That's kind of a weird gap.
I think the attributes, when you creating a player or whatever, I think corner has more attributes, has more categories to cover.
So that makes sense.
So it's a little harder. They do man coverage, zone coverage, they do all that stuff, awareness. It's a whole bunch of different categories.
It's weird, man. I'm looking at this. Well, can I go to commits here? Let's see if this works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Dude, it's crazy looking at this list. Dontre Wilson, Evan Leisel. Leisel ended up transferring out to Duke, I believe. Trey Johnson, I think he medically He medically retired.
I
Man,
love
dude.
Dontre Wilson. His high school tape was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. James Clark, that was another guy who ran like a 4.2, got hurt all the time. Corey Smith was a big community college big JUCO transfer from East Mississippi from the what's the name of that show? Last Chance U. He
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. I remember Corey Smith, man. He's one of the dudes that seemed like some bad used to happen every time he was around them. Not every time, but it just seemed like bad stuff that
yeah.
happened to him sometimes. To see like he just had some crazy luck. Him and Jalen Marshall, it seemed like that championship year.
And then good old Tracy Sprinkle, who many people might remember, got busted at the Illyria bar named Grown and Sexy or Sexy and Grown. What's it called? Yeah, Grown and Sexy, right? Remember he got busted at that bar, getting in a bar fight or whatever. Yeah. Pretty wild though. Yeah, I mean that's really. I'm excited for that game to come out. It was always a good time. I think that you're right on track where Ohio State would be number. At the worst case, you're talking about the third ranked team in the game. Maybe the defense holds them back. I don't know who would be some of the lower level players. Obviously, it's pretty clear that if you're at Ohio State, you're going to be rated at least 74. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Like who would be our lower ranked guys? I mean,
yeah,
we probably wouldn't get any lower than like a 74 or 75. Probably just be
agree.
like some. I feel like it would be mostly young guys.
Yeah.
Maybe like guy that transferred in from USC last year, the linebacker.
Oh, Palolai Gatoto. Yeah. He was not ideal last year, that's for sure. Not live up to that USC hype. But it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. I always like to play the franchise.
Mostly be defense. Like I feel like our receivers. Like I feel like we probably only had a true freshman in the like 70s. I feel like everybody else probably the 80s across the board for the most part.
Oh, I would agree with that.
Running back would probably be 90, 80. Like I feel like Mayan would be like a high 80. Like I feel
Mayan?
I feel like he'd be like a high 80. Cause I was looking up some, just reading some articles and people talking about Ohio State having the best, 1-2 punch in the country right now at running back. So, he's finally getting his proper respect. I always loved his game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, okay, if you look at the Ohio State Buckeyes NCAA 14 roster, again, Carlos Hyde was an 89 and Jordan Hall was an 82. I think you'd probably expect the same. I think Henderson probably an 89, and then Maya Williams might be like an 84 rather than 82, but I think he'd be close. You know what I mean? Was that about what you're thinking?
Yeah, I can see it. 84, maybe 85.
Yeah, and then Evan Pryor, let's look so the next running back on that roster was a Briante Dunn at 80. Yeah, I could see Evan Pryor maybe being 80. And 80 sounds about right for him too. Because he'd be the running back number 3, right?
Yeah, number 3.
Maybe Dalen Hayden, the freshman at 79 or whatever it may be, 77, whatever.
A lot of it would depend on how other players are like ranked too.
You're talking about the entire landscape of college football? Yeah, that's a good question too. I couldn't really think about. I mean, who are some of those guys that you think would be?
I think Will Anderson be a 99.
Yeah. Okay. You think he'd be a 99 straight up?
Yeah, I think he could be the 99 because he was just as dominant as Clowney was. At least, like he looked like to me last year. I mean, he looked like a better player than me overall, but
as Clowney,
I think so.
He was a Heisman finalist. Clowney wasn't a Heisman finalist. That's true.
It was a sophomore year too.
Yeah.
He put up some crazy numbers. I think he had like 30 tackles for a loss, like 17, 18 sacks. Like I feel like if it was gonna be, I feel like the 99 would be, if it was gonna be one, it'd be him or Bryce Young. Like I feel like those would be the two guys battling for that 99 ranking.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at those guys, you're going to be the top of the list. You're talking, like you said, Will Anderson, Bryce Young, Jalen Carter from Georgia is probably another guy on that list. Cam Ward from Washington State might be. Brian Breezy from Clemson. Kayshon Boutte from LSU. He might get Jackson Smith and Jigba run for his money as a wide receiver. AR-15 from down in Florida. Miles Murphy and Clemson. Those are some guys that are going to be ranked higher.
There's gonna be some highly ranked guys on there.
Yeah, so you're right that it's I would love to know more about the process of how they rank those guys, because in the NFL, I think it's more individualistic. Like, I think that they look at the player. I think they're able to better look at the player and provide the attributes that they feel are warranted based off that specific player. But in college, I feel like you have to try to be like, all right, Alabama's the best team. How do we make sure they're the best team? And you have to make sure that the entire, because there's 70 players that you're rating too. So you have to make sure your entire depth chart is better than the entire freshman class of Toledo. You know what I mean? So it's like, at the same time, you can't make the entirety of the Bowling Green roster 40s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder how the process is to how they get that overall rating out.
Yeah, it would be
really tough. And I know it's so many players too in college. I know that makes it harder than like ranking in the NFL.
I mean, you're talking about
a lot in the NFL too, but like it's so many at college.
Yeah, because the NFL, you have 32 teams and 52 roster spots.
Yeah.
In college, you have 131 teams and 72 scholarships, right? I mean, I'm looking at the roster again. You had a couple the highest small school G5 quarterback was Jordan Lynch in '93 from Northern Illinois. At running back, you had a Kent State Dre Archer, who was a 91. And then at wide receiver, your highest was Cody Hoffman, 91 wide receiver from Brigham Young. So it's interesting. I don't know. It'd be really interesting to dive in to figure out how they get these ratings. I think that I am going to come up with an article where I try to give every starter on the Ohio State offense a projected NCAA rating. But, obviously there's nothing compared to. So it'd be really easy to write that article because no one is going to email me a while back, later and say, go screw yourself. With the Madden rankings, I usually do it with the NFL rookie class.
Yeah.
Stop doing that from all the people emailing me to tell me to go have sex with myself.
Man, Madden, they've been getting a little crazy with the ratings lately.
I don't really play Madden, to be honest with you. I haven't played Madden.
I haven't. It's really not. It just fell off, but yeah, I've just been seeing the ratings on Twitter and stuff. I'm like,
yeah, people make a big deal.
They had Jamar Chase at 87. That was enough for me. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Pretty crazy. All right, have you been paying attention before? I know, we said we're going to try to keep this at 45 minutes. I like the conversation we had, and I think we're being close to wrap it up. But I did want to mention, have you been paying attention to Major League Football?
Yes, I have.
So it's kicking off with the Ohio Force on August 6th, 9th? I can't remember the exact date. But we've slowly been releasing details on this podcast. We talked about Bill Connelly being the head coach there, and Winfield Garnett being the defensive line coach. I found out today there are 2 other Buckeyes. Let me make sure that's right. Yes, there are 2 other Buckeyes in camp for the Ohio Force, which are the only 2 Buckeyes in the league. One is DeMario McCall, who everybody remembers from last year, who got a brief trial with the Bears after going undrafted.
Hope he gets a shot.
I think he will. It'll be interesting to see how they play him. My understanding is that his listed position is running back there. So I don't know if that's the best route for him, because if he's trying to make the big bucks and make it to the NFL, I would try to stay at corner. He really did play well at corner. I think that's a guy that if he would have played all 4 years at corner, we probably would see him in the NFL. Obviously, he wouldn't be a star or anything, but I think he could have had a productive career. And then the other player is Dominic DiMasio, the kicker from the 20. What did he do? He was a transfer from Missouri. He played. I think he graduated 21. Is that right? He played this past year too. He was a senior this past year too. I'm sorry. Yeah, so he'll also be there. That's the kicker. So, do you have any thoughts on those guys?
Man, DeMario McCall, I'm hoping he can become, what he was and what I saw in his high school tape. He was going to be a stud. So, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with you though about corner. I think that would have been a clearer path to NFL for him. But that was the time when we were loaded at corner. You know, we had so many
Yes.
first rounders back then.
Well, he didn't play corner in high school either. It was, I mean,
Yeah, I know,
when you talk about his high school tape, first of all, that's a guy that just like you, I was smitten with his tape. I thought he was going to be better than Ezekiel Elliott. If I'm being completely honest, I was like, dude, this guy's got the wiggle. He's got he's got the juice. You know, you would see him run through guys. I knew he's much smaller than Zeke was, but you know, you would also see him run through guys in his high school tape, and it just never really clicked for him. You know, he was kind of stuck in that weird purgatory where they didn't really know how to use him, kind of like Dontre Wilson was in. The only guy that really thrived in that H-back role was Curtis Samuel. But even Curtis Samuel was underutilized. Curtis Samuel, if he was utilized properly, we'd be talking about him today like he's one of the best Buckeyes of all time. But instead,
there were games like they wouldn't even get him the ball. Like, I mean, they were, but they would take it forever. I'm like, man, just give him 20 touches every game. Like,
yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. Remember specifically, I believe it was the Penn State game where he had like 3 touches in the first half for like 70 yards. And then we just like stopped giving him the ball and was like, what's going on? You know, when you look at the stats, you're like, why did he only why is he only getting 5 touches here? That doesn't make any sense.
I feel like he could have been similar to, like, his impact could have been similar to Percy Harvin. Like, he could have had that same type of respect that Percy did if we would have really fed him the rock. And that was we needed to at that time too. He was our best player by far on offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, I think that if it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for that weird usage, that would be a guy that we'd be talking about as one of the best of all time.
He could have had 1,000 and 1,000. I feel like 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving. I feel like he was the guy who could have did that.
Yeah, they lost that game too. Ohio State lost 24-21 with 9 minutes and 15 seconds remaining in the first half. Curtis Samuel touched the ball for the first time against Penn State. It was probably first touch. His first touch was a 15-yard reception that went for a touchdown. He touched the ball 9 more times for a total of 10 touches. He averaged 13.9 yards per touch and had a 74-yard touchdown run early in the third quarter. 10 touches. He had 10 touches, averaged 13 yards per touch that game, and they lost. That was the biggest. That was the most egregious error of his career.
Yeah, I still can't believe his usage at times.
Crazy, man. Crazy. He shouldn't be. That was the problem with that position. Urban Meyer was a great coach, a great offensive mind. I still believe he's probably better than Ryan Day just because he knew what he wanted. He filled those roles. Maybe Ryan Day will prove me wrong at some point. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Urban Meyer was an idiot for his usage of Curtis Samuel. But not everybody's perfect, right? That's just those are the facts, right? Urban Meyer's made mistakes too. I think it was Trent Richardson. They waited like 3 years for him to be 2 years for him to be the lead back in Alabama. You could go back and there's guys in Alabama. Same thing. And I think Curtis Samuel is just one of those guys where it's like, dude, what were you doing? What's going on there? You know what I mean? Same thing with the quarterback usage when Cardale Jones had that great playoff run, and he could not figure out a way to make Cardale Jones work in his offense, which is sad. Everybody has their limitations. I get that, but that's another guy where it's like, dude, I would have loved to see Cardale Jones really rip in Ryan Day's offense. You know what I mean? Because he had.
I feel like his arm would have. Like, no offense to JT Barry, I love him, a great quarterback for us, but his Cardale's arm, I feel like would have took the offense to a different level.
Yeah, that's a fact, dude. That's a fact. You saw it. I don't think that's disrespecting JT Barrett at all. That's like, what I mean? Like, what are you supposed to do? Cardale Jones had NFL size, NFL arm, he had NFL athleticism. JT Barrett was a game manager. I love JT Barrett. I still talk to him to this day. Good dude, but I'm not going to sit here and act like he was the best quarterback of all time. He was very, very fortunate to be on the teams he was on. He played very intelligently. I guess more or less it seems like he was kind of the Tom Brady of the Ohio State football, right? Where it's like, when everything is clicking, that's the guy you want. But Cardale Jones had more oomph to him. I guess higher ceiling maybe would be the more eloquent way of putting it.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
Yeah, I remember Irvin used to write about JT leadership, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I know he's probably a great locker room guy and everything.
And that's a fact. Like I said, I still talk to JT to this day. And he's an upstanding individual. You're never going to have to worry about him. And, you remember that clip where it was him and his girlfriend fighting. Even in that clip, he sounded like a sane level-headed individual, and he played that way too. And it's kind of how he is. Just a good guy, very positive. I know when he got hurt, he was rooting on Cardale Jones, and I can't say that for, there were instances at Ohio State when I was close to the program where that was not the case for a lot of guys. But with JT, that was the case. When he was hurt, he was still rooting for everybody else to succeed. That's the kind of guy he was. So I don't think it's any disrespect. Everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. He beat Michigan 4 times, got himself a championship ring. He's making more money than you and me combined. So you know what I mean? Yeah, and he had a shot in the NFL. He played with the Saints for a bit. And he played in the spring league with the Alpha Dogs or whatever their name was. And I believe he got beat out by Shea Patterson in the spring league. That kind of goes also to show you. He actually got signed by the Edmonton Elks, the CFL, this past year. Probably would be starting for the Elks, but he got hurt and was forced to retire. Then it was just funny because they actually signed Cardale Jones right after that.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, but I think Cardale Jones was. I don't know the details behind that. I don't have, but I'm guessing that maybe Cardale was out of the league for too long. The last time Cardale saw the field was in the XFL, which was 2 years ago, 2020. Yeah, so maybe that he was out of shape or something. I don't know, but it'll be interesting. But yeah, I'm glad you came on. Like I said, we can see your work at around the block for the Ohio State website. You got anything new looking up that we should check out?
Haven't dropped anything new lately, no. But I am gonna get into some season predictions. So no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, season predictions for the team.
Look
at some numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, look like try like some statistical projections, maybe some stuff like that. But definitely gonna do season predictions though.
Are you okay. do you do individual teams too? Like do you do projections for Indiana, Northwestern, all of them, or you just talk about purely Ohio State and Ohio State statistics?
I mean, right now just Ohio State, but I am trying to get into more teams, so I'll definitely be working on that.
Would this be something this idea that you're working on? Would this be something that you could utilize to gamble with as far as totals and over unders and yards?
I don't know. I don't know if I'll use this. I don't know.
Okay, well that's fun that you're making this worthless piece of paper that I can't use to make money. Great, can't wait to read it.
We're definitely gonna make some money this year betting too, though.
You are gonna come on when we do our college football fantasy draft, correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna be on. Yes,
I'm excited for it, dude. I'm excited for it. You, like I said, you put out good work. You're a great follow on Twitter. Where can everybody follow you at?
At BullWalker1. That's my main page, and then the Buckeye page at ATB_Buckeyes.
Yeah. And you tweet a lot about basketball too. So unfortunately,
I love basketball too.
Yeah. You is there any Ohio State basketball stuff you want to say, man? I keep a football here because I don't know anything about basketball. But if you got something interesting to add, be my guest.
I mean, not at the moment. We just recruit. I know Scotty, wing. Scotty Middleton is committing soon, 4-star wing. I know we in this final school, so hoping we can land him. We need him. I wish we could have kept Malachi.
Oh man, yeah. See, that's a name that I recognize. Yeah.
Yeah, like as soon as we get a good prospect, they're going after their freshman year.
That's crazy. Do you think that the NFL should go to the one and done rule?
I don't think so. Just because I think the guy's body, you just have to different level of physicality in the NFL. I feel like you need a couple years just to get your body right.
I agree.
Even if you're like a big guy, I still feel like you got to get things like conditioning, learning the terminology, the scheme. I feel like it's just a lot more to it, mentally and physically.
Yeah. Well, I think the amount of busts too really kind of go to show that, because in the NBA, I feel like a lot of guys bust because they're just not good or they're not as good as people thought. But in the NFL, I think a lot of guys bust more because it's like, oh, well, that guy, Damon Arnett. I was watching Damon Arnett film the other day because I was prepping for my piece for Jair Brown, the new incoming freshman. He reminds me a lot of Damon Arnett. Well, Damon Arnett didn't bust out of the NFL because he sucks. He busted out of the NFL because he went psycho and decided to spend his money on rapping and guns. You know what I mean? Like or his teammate Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs didn't bust out because he sucked. He busted out because he wrecked his car and killed somebody. You know what I mean? And that it's sad to say, but a lot of times in the NFL, you can kind of distribute it back to that. Same thing with Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell was a very good football player. You give him all that money, and you're just turned into a monster. Sometimes that's how it works.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
I feel
I
like
agree.
NBA busts. Yeah, I definitely agree about that. The NBA, NFL, and NBA busts are a little different. Like I feel
Yeah.
like NFL just since you've seen them play, even though there's always guys flying under the radar, there's guys that do bust.
Yeah.
You kind of know what you get more just because you get to see them 2 to 3 years. You get to talk to coaches who've been
Yeah.
around them for 2 to 3 years and stuff like that. NBA, this guy was only there for like 9 months.
Yeah.
So
And I don't. I shouldn't talk like I know anything about the NBA, about basketball. I do not. But it just seems like when you see people bust out of the NBA, like the guy with the mustache from Gonzaga, Adam Morrison. It's like, well, that
yeah,
there were when I feel like in the NBA, there's in each draft there's 3 dudes where it's like that's the dude, and if they don't make it, it's probably because they're gonna get hurt, and then the rest, if they don't make it, it's because they have these giant flaws in their game. You know what I mean? I mean, you can.
yeah,
I feel like after those top of the line prospects, you're looking at guys that like, okay, well, this guy can't shoot, but he can pass, or this guy can't pass, but he can shoot, or this guy's a little too small. And the NFL, you got 3 rounds full of dudes where it's like, Kenneth Walker is pretty much what you would draw up as a running back, and he went in the second round. You know what I mean? Like you can
yeah,
get guys that can play all the way through pick 100. A, because there's so many people on the field. B, because there's
yeah.
so many different positions and roles that you can
You get a
find.
day one contributor.
Yeah,
Fourth,
exactly.
fifth round, third, fourth, fifth round in the NFL. NBA is
Yeah,
rare to get a day
yeah,
one contributor, in the second
yeah,
round or late first, especially a
yeah.
starter.
Well, and that you can play for so long in the NBA. You can, you got guys that have been playing for 15, 10, 15 years all the time, and their roster is way smaller too. So it's harder for a guy like that to break in. But in the NFL, that's kind of what you're investing in. You're like, okay, I know this guy's going to suck for 2 years. The NBA, it feels like they don't really roll like that unless they're, quote unquote tanking. But they don't really want guys to be like, well, he's going to grow into it. No, they're wanting to win now, more or less. But so that's why I feel like the rules are a little different for basketball than they are for football as far as maturity goes and all that. Plus, you're getting beat on. You're getting beat on in the NFL. You know what I mean? Physically, you're just getting beat on. Because those NBA players too, they're playing. The Cleveland Browns just signed that basketball player from Texas Tech. They're playing tight end. They're too big. They're not fast enough. They've got quick feet, but they're not fast enough to play wide receiver, right? So you got to put them at inline tight end, and you're getting beat on there. You got to learn how to block. You got to do the Rico Gathers from Baylor, the same issue that he had. That's why there's so few of them that have really made it. Like Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham, Julius Peppers, those guys. Ricky Dudley played basketball.
And I feel like NBA, like they can do the one and done, like come in after your freshman year, because like they can. They can play around. Like if you're a smaller guy, they can work around it, or stuff like that. NFL, if you're not physically, ready, they can't really work around it.
Yeah,
like nothing you can do.
Yeah, and most injuries you see in the NBA that like end your career. It's not necessarily like, oh, this guy got tore up, this guy got destroyed and tore every knee ligament, or this guy, has had so many concussions he can't write his name anymore. It's usually like, oh, hey, this guy is 7 feet tall and his joints are giving out. Or you know what I mean? Because Zion Williamson's already kind of dealing with that, right? He's so tall, he's so big that his joints are already they gotta like sit him and shit like that. LeBron James, they're sitting him, and that's kind of what you deal with. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm getting pounded on. Like running backs in the NFL, they last 3 years because they get hit every goddamn play. Every goddamn play they get the ball, they get hit. You know what I mean? There's no way around it. But
you getting hit at running back, that's
no
way around it at all.
Exactly. That's why they got a short shelf life. But I appreciate you coming on. This was Ohio State of Mind. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh Keatley16. Again, check out Bull's work. Follow Bull. And it was at Bull Walker 1. Is that right?
Yeah, Bull Walker 1 at Bull Walker 1.
He's got great tweets, good follow. Again, I appreciate you guys coming on. Give me a like, listen, follow. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify. Be kind. Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what you want to hear. I got a Rolodex, a fun guest like Bull, like Jay Stevens, like Nate Atkins. I got, tell us what you want to hear. We'll do it. I can have more than one guest on here. You tell me what you want and we will bring it. But this was Ohio State of Mind on the Around the Block Network, and we are out.